Yep, I'm Grace, and thank you for having me. It's really real honor to be here. I am the head of Google Research in Australia, and I'm also the site lead for engineering for AUNZ, and he's my friend, an AI-generated kangaroo. All right, a little bit about me in a very short sort of 1 minute. I'm also an alum of UNSW, and I have to say the best years of my life was spent at UNSW. I had a really great time. I won't tell you actually how many years I was here. I just tried to extend my undergraduate life as long as I could. So I can remember many, many years of just hanging out on the lawn and the library, and it was great. And then after that, I left the country and I did my postgraduate degree at MIT in speech and natural language, and I have a background in CS at MIT, and I work in dialogue systems. After a while, after a stint in the US, I came back and I also worked at UNSW for a very brief while before joining Google. And I became a software engineer. I kind of learnt software engineering as I joined Google 14 years ago. Throughout the years, I've worked on many product areas. I've been exposed to a lot of different things, different products that we invest in at Google, and led teams. Most recently, I was an engineering lead in ChromeOS, which has a very big team in Sydney. A couple of years ago, I was appointed the engineering site lead for AUNZ, which means that I know a lot of the ins and outs of what's happening with our 1,000 strong engineering workforce in Sydney. So if you want to know all the gossip, I have it. A few months ago, I was appointed head of research for Google Australia, and that started in around April, May this year, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. All right, is this gonna work? Yeah, and many of you probably know the story about engineering at Google in Australia. It all started off with the Maps team. A couple of Danish guys invented Maps, and Google acquired them, and they didn't want to move to the US, so they grew their Australian team in Sydney, and that became the first engineering team in Google Australia. And through the decades, we have loads of different products being developed at a core level in Sydney, including search, ChromeOS, photos, payments. Of course, we have an enormous cloud team. Fuchsia, it's an open source operating system. Taskmate, you may or may not have heard of it. It's an app developed in Australia, and it's been launched in India. And Fitbit, just a small acquisition we made a couple of years ago, and now we have a Fitbit team in Australia, which is pretty exciting. And Google Research, yay. So AI has been part of the fabric of engineering in Australia for many years, so it hasn't just started, right? So we've got AI and machine learning engineers embedded in all of our product teams, and I'm just going to talk very briefly about the latest launch we've had. It's a human presence sensor in a Chromebook, in a Lenovo Chromebook that is out in store shelves. And what they did was they embedded a low-powered camera, a very cheap and low-resolution camera, and developed the machine learning models with very small memory budget, like 256K, really small, and did really clever things with that to make it work, to detect humans for the laptop, so that when you walk, it unlocks when you walk towards it, and it locks when you walk away from it. And also, ultimately, it alerts you if there is someone behind you. So it's called second-person detection. In industry, we call that shoulder surfing. So if there's somebody shoulder surfing behind you, it can warn you. This was all developed full stack in the Google Sydney, from the hardware to the software. So it's pretty cool. We're pretty proud of it. It's a multi-year project. And it's very privacy preserving. Like, given that the camera is really low quality, and it's a very well sandboxed, it's privacy and security preserving. Okay. All right. And of course, you know that in November last year, we announced the Digital Future Initiative. And the idea behind that is that Google is going to invest in Australia and invest in Australia's digital capabilities and give back to the Australian economy. And that is the whole point of the Digital Future Initiative. It has 3 pillars. The first is investing in infrastructure, in particular the cloud infrastructure. And a very core part of that is investing in a research lab, and the latest of many research labs across Google. And the third is building partnerships with Australia's leading organizations, from CSIRO to across our universities. And if you didn't know, Google Research has thousands, like 3,000 plus people across the world, and new locations are popping up all the time. A few years ago, there was a lab started in Ghana, and 4 years ago, maybe there was a lab in Bangalore, and the latest is one in Sydney, Australia. Unfortunately, I'm going to say very little about Google Research Australia today, other than I'm really excited that myself and Peter Bartlett are now co-leading this effort that hopefully will grow to a full-size lab in a short number of years. Our goals, first and foremost, are to collaborate with our universities, help nurture the talent locally in Australia, nurture the students, encourage people to do PhDs in computer science and work in AI and contribute back to the economy. The second goal for us is to push the envelope, push the frontiers of computer science and AI for the world and for the field of AI. That is investing in forward-looking and bold research, and that's what we're in the business of. Third, we're interested in things that are of interest to Australia and Australians, topics that we care about, topics that will eventually help Australia. And finally, and if there is innovations that we come up with, transfer to our products, that's great. That is, of course, like a nice to have. There's actually more bums in seats than there are on the slides, but I couldn't fit them on the slide, but this is the key personnel, myself and Peter, Steve, who's a professor at ANU, Ben, and my Wombat friend. This is an AI-generated Wombat from our party system. You can go to the party system and take a look at the cool images that are generated from long textual prompts. This is the latest AI that we've generated. And to be completely shameless, we're here to see who of the talents out there, and maybe your students, maybe your colleagues that you can recommend in coming to join our team. Thank you.